Ooh, hey, how's it going, man? My goodness, what an episode! Wow, I am almost at a loss of words here. My goodness, I enjoyed that episode. So wow, wow, I was just I was at the edge of my seat for that entire episode. My goodness, did I enjoy it? So much revealed to us, so much just unbelievable story writing there. I was just absolutely on the edge of my seat. Yeah, at David D, I have some thoughts to say about that for sure. We did see a couple of Breaking Bad characters appear in this episode, absolutely. And my goodness, the running between the raindrops, as Peter Gould alluded to in the previous podcast for 612, man, that was good. At Huge Asshole, 15 out of that name gets me every time. At 15 out of 10 episode, yeah. To tell you the truth, I can't believe it, man. This might have been one of my favorite episodes of all time of A Better Call Saul. It really did. I now remember when Jonathan Banks talked about how this final season ties a bow on the whole Breaking Bad story so well. Wow, was that an understatement? So hey, how's it going, everyone? Brian C, Chris Cineros, what is up? So my goodness, wow, yeah, absolutely unreal. At Ryan Sheedy, yeah. At Eddie, that was insane. I agree. So wow, yeah. At Shan Aslam, absolutely amazing episode, but very sad as well. Yes, my goodness, so much here. What a long episode. I believe about an hour long, not including commercials. Wow, wow, and my goodness, I'm a little bit out of a loss for words here for sure. So at Facade Games, yes, well done for sure. That is my daddy's a drug dealer and mommy turned him in. Absolutely. Caballo Sin Nombre, great quote right there by Saul Goodman. Very amazing how everything comes full circle here in this episode, including lines of dialogue that Hank Schrader said in season 2 of Breaking Bad with Christian Ortega and Jesse Pinkman. So yeah, again, kind of running in between the raindrops here. Again, I really don't know where to start here, but I think I'm going to kind of progress this episode from beginning to end. That's kind of my intention. And again, at the same time, kind of shifting to the very end, that leaked teaser for the next episode was absolutely legit. They changed the ending. I don't think they had any dialogue on it. They didn't say one episode remains, but it was the exact same teaser with Saul stating Hoover Max Extract Pressure Probe Model 60 overlaid with his Suzuki Esteem. So that leak was legit. At Dylan 2 times, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate the support. I would say top 3 Better Call Saul episodes. The 2 conversations between Jesse/Kim and the reveal of Kim/Gene convo was amazing. Can't wait to see how it ends. I agree wholeheartedly with that statement right there. That is spot on analysis for sure. I would have to agree. I can't believe how much I enjoyed that episode. I really did. And there's just so much nuance there, just so much just peeling back the layers of the onions of the different characters, sort of seeing where Kim's head was at all of these years, sort of seeing just how, it was even unbelievable to see the Saul Goodman and Kim Wexler interaction that sort of took place during the Breaking Bad timeline, if you will. Again, if I'm not mistaken, maybe I missed it, but I do not believe that scene was displayed the year specifically in the Breaking Bad timeline was displayed to us in that scene. I'm not too sure where exactly that takes place. Likely very early following the divorce, I would imagine, back in 2004. So yeah, that was just unbelievable. Yeah, at Dylan 2 times, I would have to agree. That's up there as one of my favorite episodes for sure. So it's just unbelievable. So Gary Mercado. Yeah, absolutely. Great too. Again, kind of skipping around here, but again, I'll get to that for sure in respect to, just I guess what's the word I'm looking for here? The sort of conclusion and oh my God, the word is escaping me here. Just basically just sort of the conclusion and the closure. That's the word I'm getting. More or less closure for Cheryl following what happened to Howard Hamlin. And after they did Howard Hamlin so dirty, and with that being such a depressing plot, that was just, I really enjoyed that scene as well. Just seeing sort of, Kim basically atoning for what she did, at least attempting to. So, but again, that I'm kind of, skipping around here and everything like that. But yeah, but basically just to get into it right here, the cold opening scene, of course, a prelude for the scene that came later at the end of this episode, and we now know the sort of behind-the-scenes fan footage was absolutely filming this scene that took place in this episode right here. pretty amazing. And in hindsight, yeah, I can definitely imagine why they did not want anyone to see that and why they were taking such precautions to prevent anyone from filming that location, because Jesse Pinkman was in that scene. Like, who knew the whole time that was Jesse Pinkman, whose cigarette Kim was lighting in that behind the scenes fan footage that was put out about a year ago. And so just unbelievable. In hindsight, just to look back at that and see. But at Kate Valentine, thank you so much for the super chat. Astonishing. If you are referring to your description of that episode, I would agree completely. So yes, that is absolutely, just absolutely, spot on right there. I was at the edge of my seat there. My heart was absolutely pumping in respect to Gene Takovic timeline scenes. I love to see the sort of atonement of Kim Wexler in this episode as well, where, we also get to see the Waterworks, where, again, kind of jumping around here for sure, but when she finally goes through everything she did and finally atones and goes back to Albuquerque, again, with Kim Wexler being that stoic of a character, I really wonder if it really took her about 6 years to break down in tears like that at Kate Valentine. I've kind of thought about that for sure, and I will get to that, when I discuss this episode. At Hugh Jasshole, thank you so much. That name, man. Thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Think he would have killed her had she not made the trust comment. Best episode of anything I've seen ever. Constant tension and a huge ass laugh. Yes, I mean, again, spot on there for sure. The amount of humor that was sort of interjected into that episode as well. I mean, even when, she didn't Google Saul Goodman's identity, she asked Jeeves. I mean, that was just absolutely hilarious. And yeah, I did think about that for sure. And kind of say what you will about Gene Takovic when he rips out that phone cord and really kind of makes a threatening gesture towards Marion. In the back of my mind, I mean, say what you will about Saul being this very evil character, but I mean, not to sort of, excuse his behavior, but I was thinking about Lalo Salamanca would have killed Marion with absolute impunity and would have slept like a baby that night. He absolutely would have killed her, no second thoughts asked. He would have absolutely had no conscience whatsoever about it. But say what you will about Saul, Gene, Jimmy, he couldn't do it. He couldn't kill her. He absolutely could have. He definitely could have. But again, that trust comment definitely seems like, again, it was definitely something that made him, I guess, who knows if he was going to kill her or not. I'm not too sure. Again, we don't know what was going through Saul Goodman's head, Gene Takovic's head at the time. He had Hugh Jassel. But yeah, it's definitely something I thought about, and I immediately thought, I'm like, Lalo would have killed her like Hans Landa jumping over that desk and strangling that woman to death in Inglourious Basterds. So yeah, it's definitely something I thought about for sure. But yes, unbelievable episode. My goodness gracious, that was one of my favorite episodes I've seen of Better Call Saul. So, and thank you again so much for the super chat, Hugh. I really appreciate it. At Nick Russ, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate the support, man. I had so much secondhand embarrassment during the Kim crying on the bus scene. Also, Jean cornering Marion in her house was reminiscent of Walter cornering Saul in Breaking Bad. Yes, absolutely. In the episode entitled Live Free or Die, when he says, we're done when I say we're done, I definitely see that as well. In respect to the first part of your comment about I had so much secondhand embarrassment during the Kim crying on the bus scene, again, I'm not too sure what you mean there. Again, that was a very emotional scene, and like I was sort of getting at in respect to Kim Wexler in this episode, she definitely seems like a character to me who was containing that emotion for 6 years and finally just had to break down and just could not hold it in anymore. At Nick Russ, someone who was putting on a facade, living her life in Florida, going about the motions, living this, very, normal middle working class life, working for Palm Coast Sprinklers and trying to repress everything that happened. But again, I really think she really did. I mean, we saw her cry a little bit with the divorce of Jimmy in the episode entitled Fun and Games, but I really think that sort of emotional breakdown took about over half a decade for her to truly let it out of her, sort of, to sort of let out and sort of express that emotion. But I do a little bit better if you sort of clarified a little bit in respect to the secondhand embarrassment during Kim crying on the bus. The final scene of her in the Gene Takovic timeline. So, but I really appreciate the support at Nick Russ. But I'd be happy to speak on that if you could clarify it a little bit. The first part of your chat there for sure. Ooh, yeah, but yeah, again, Waterworks here. Again, this was the sort of secret behind the scenes footage here of Gene Takovic. Oh, again, the names all sort of get intermingled in my head here. But again, it's absolutely foreshadowing. Again, with the knowledge of that behind the scenes fan footage, I definitely knew that Kim Wexler was going to be in the fold here. But of course, we also see the shot of the divorce papers as well, also, foreshadowing the fact that Kim was going to see Saul here. And my goodness, what a final reveal when Kim finally interacts with Saul later in this episode. At Nick Rust, yeah, I meant that I felt bad for her and really felt how embarrassed that it must have felt for her. Yeah, that is, I see what you're saying there, the secondhand embarrassment. Okay, so Kim feeling embarrassed, and yeah, I mean, I can only imagine just this sort of assortment of emotions that she was feeling, sort of embarrassment, guilt, regret, likely. Truly having, true emotional empathy probably for what she did to Cheryl and to Howard and all of the bad things that she did. And, her trying to be I guess, normal functioning member of society didn't really atone for everything she did. It was more, I guess, emotional coping for her. But yeah, I see what you mean. I think she felt a vast assortment of emotions when she was breaking down on that bus. And just, yeah, unbelievable scene here. I would agree for sure. But yeah, kind of getting back into it here, this sort of opening scene here of Saul, again, foreshadowing the meeting that would come later in this episode. Again, I believe this takes place around 2004, right after the divorce happens, and that's the same time when this Jesse Pinkman scene happens. Are you talking at Dylan 2 times? You talking about Aaron Paul slipping into the role effortlessly? Yes. Again, very great choice of filming by the creators to have both scenes in the dark in order to, I guess, lessen the impact of the fact that Jesse is probably playing. I mean, my goodness, I could do it off the top of my head. That took place in 2004, and I think he was 21 years old, 25 years old in the year about 2009. So wow, my goodness, how young was he in that scene? He must have been, again, I can't do math here. I think around 2008, 2009, he was 25 years old. So, yeah, he was about 21 there in that scene, if I'm not mistaken, if my very poor math off the top of my head is correct there. So, yeah, again, very, very good decision by the creators to have both of those scenes of Jesse Pinkman in the dark. And also, very well done. I truly enjoyed it. And, like I said, I will absolutely get to that for sure. But of course, following this, the scene then picks up here in the black and white, and I was trying to figure out who is this? Is this Marion cutting a potato here? I mean, who could this be? And this is the reveal here. None other than Kim Wexler in Florida, living her life like I talked about, living this normal middle-class life, being away from Jimmy, being away from Saul Goodman. Taking place in the Gene Takovic timeline. Again, the premise of this scene here was, of course, to set up what I suppose Kim Wexler had been doing ever since the year 2004. Again, I'm not too sure if she was in a relationship with this man here. It definitely seemed like they were just dating in a very casual relationship. We see her, going about her daily routine. She's having a barbecue with friends that she's made in Florida. We see her going to work and engaging in the sort of office small talk. And all of that, we see what she's doing in her job, likely what she's been doing for years, likely. But of course, the big reveal here is later in this scene, of course, when, after we see the backstory of Kim Wexler in Florida. The big reveal here is when, again, after lots of setup here, again, a lot of sort of very interesting details sort of sprayed into the scene as well. Kind of a very interesting piece of small talk that she and her coworkers were having at lunch when the coworker brought up a crack cocaine. And again, they're just sort of making small talk of it. But of course, just based on the backstory of Kim Wexler and what she did to Howard, again, a very intentional piece of dialogue that was put here by the creators. And again, we can sort of see the gears turning in Kim Wexler's head, not really engaging in that conversation. Likely quite a triggering subject matter when her character brings up, not her character, her co-worker brings up the crack cocaine, just as small talk as you do at lunch. Again, very interesting scene here. Just a lot of backstory here. That was a very sort of interesting component of this backstory. Again, I think I did see some people talking about the sex scene that happened here. Again, some people might find that superfluous, but I think that was necessary, sort of just to display that, Kim is, not saving herself or anything like that for Saul. She's moving on with her life. She's engaging in relationships and doing what people in relationships do. She's trying to be a normal person. Again, maybe some people found that scene unnecessary, but I actually quite I like the literary premise of it. Yeah, as well as the comedy that was interjected into it. I saw some yups in the chat for sure. But again, a necessary scene. Kim has moved on with her life. She is not really thinking about Saul. She's not saving herself for Saul. Again, that was the premise of that scene in my opinion. So as maybe you could maybe deem it unnecessary, but I actually felt it was rather necessary in respect to writing of the story, and quite funny as well. At Mill M, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. I didn't quite catch how Cancer Guy came out of the house and waved at the cops. I thought he either died or blacked out. Yeah, I mean, again, kind of getting ahead of ourselves here, but again, of course, that's a whole nother thing there, the whole robbery scene there that goes there. But again, to talk about the very end of that, he's definitely passed out. Like I said, the backstory there of him taking the drugs many hours ago. And again, it wasn't displayed to us on screen. It just very much makes sense that he woke up and again, he was up for a little bit, but of course he passed out again on the stairs. And it's likely, again, it takes quite a while for an arrest to happen like that. I could imagine it could maybe take 45 minutes or to an hour maybe to process everything that happened with Jeff, to sort of call the ambulance and do the sort of police report and everything like that. And I guess in that maybe 1 hour span, then the Mark sort of regained consciousness and sort of looked around and realized that his possessions were all ajar. He had things stolen. His window was shattered, and that's when he went out the door and flagged down the cops, likely. So that was my sort of interpretation of that at Mill M. And I will get to that scene absolutely in this, as I progress through this episode. And thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Ooh, and yeah, so again, the big reveal here is Kim going about her daily life. She's been doing this for 6 years now, trying to just, live a normal life after everything that happened with Saul Goodman. But of course, we then see that we see the preface. This is sort of a flashback to the previous episode when Gene called Kim Wexler on November 12th, his birthday. And of course, we then see the conversation take place in this scene here. And yeah, really interesting scene here for sure. Again, Kim is just absolutely almost flat, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? She's almost like a deer in the headlights, flabbergasted here. She cannot believe that after all of these years and that everything that Kim did, everything Saul did, and clearly she knew what everything he did when she says to him, I think you should turn yourself in. Again, Saul making small talk with her, asking how everything's going, Kim not really engaging very much, and of course, Saul really expressing a lot of vibrato here in this scene, talking about, the feds can't get me, they couldn't find their own ass with two hands and a proctologist, a lot of vibrato here, trying, to say, I'm alive, I'm well. Again, Kim Wexler really doesn't say much here until, Saul really presses her and says, say something. And she says to him, I think you should turn yourself in. And of course, that is the preface for Saul having the absolute outburst that we saw in episode 611 in the phone booth that wasn't displayed to us in the previous episode. And yeah, that German dub that I talked about in the previous, in my previous stream, that was right. More or less, the dialogue was interjected there and it kind of gave it away in respect to, Saul saying, why don't you turn yourself in? And everything to that effect. Again, a lot of vibrato here. Again, a lot of nuance here. I could really spend so much time here on this conversation, but Saul with the vibrato, again, a lot of it just seems to be emotional coping in this scene, following the rejection by Kim when she says, I think you should turn yourself in. And of course, Kim ends the conversation very abruptly and says, I'm glad you're alive. And that's what causes Saul to have his outburst that we saw in the previous episode. And of course, following that, Kim is very unceremoniously interrupted and has to sing happy birthday to her coworker, which very coincidentally and very intentionally by Vince Gilligan, the way it was written in this episode, her coworker's birthday, again, I would imagine Kim Wexler knew this, was on Saul Goodman's birthday as well, Jimmy McGill's birthday. So yeah, quite an unbelievable piece of writing here for sure. And again, while we can't really know for sure what is going on in the characters' heads, just based on what happened here following this scene, it definitely seems as though this conversation by Jimmy McGill to Kim Wexler was really the catalyst and the trigger for Kim to go back to Albuquerque and to attempt to atone for everything she did to Howard Hamlin as well as to Cheryl in the best of her ability. And again, a very interesting piece of dialogue here as well. And again, shout out to Courtney Reviews. I think she shouted out this theory in respect to Kim telling the truth about what happened to Howard. But of course, at the same time, she would have never done this as long as Gus Fring and Mike Ehrmantraut were still alive. But of course, as it was displayed to us in this conversation where Saul says, there's no need to worry. Again, I'm butchering the dialogue a little bit, but how Fring is dead, Mike is dead, Lalo is dead, so they tell me. Again, a great little piece of a dialogue there as well in respect to Lalo. Again, I've discussed that again and again in respect to the necessity of Saul. Again, it's actually quite interesting. Again, despite the fact that it's 2010, Gus is dead, Mike is dead, he has been told clearly that Lalo is dead, he still doesn't believe it after he sort of came back from the dead at the end of the episode entitled Plan and Execution. So very sort of great piece of dialogue there that I really enjoyed, where he said, so they tell me, where he, even to this day in 2010, as Gene Takovic, he knows that Lalo is dead, but he still doesn't fully believe it. So I love that piece of writing there for sure. But yeah, like I said, this conversation here that Kim has, and she can no longer continue to go about her normal life as she was doing previously. She can't just go about her life and sing happy birthday and live this life. Or again, we don't know what happens after she gets back from Albuquerque, but again, she could not go about her sort of a normal routine here. It was clearly the catalyst for her going back to Albuquerque and trying to atone for her sins, if you will, that she does in the very next act. At Rena Rocha, one more episode. Yes, bittersweet, but true for sure. Absolutely. With that emoji, I agree completely. But yeah, as I was saying here, again, great scene here where we see Kim Wexler coming back to Albuquerque. A nice little piece of, again, I guess it's an Easter egg, if you will, of the Alaska Airlines. Again, a sort of shout out to El Camino. Very well done, Vince Gilligan for sure in respect to writing this episode, but or maybe it was the filming, I'm not too sure about the production. But again, we see her going back to the Bernalillo County Courthouse, and of course following this, it's then revealed that she is outside of Cheryl's door. Again, a great scene of there at the Bernalillo County Courthouse where we can even see her looking at the public defender, sort of dealing with a client in the sort of same manner that she did all of those years when she was still a lawyer. And yes, definitely seemed very forlorn to me when I go back and sort of look at that scene of her looking at the PD client. And, despite the fact that she's trying to live her normal life, I definitely think she misses that. Again, it's just my interpretation. I'm not too sure. I don't know what's going on in Kim Wexler's head, but that scene there when she's looking at the PD case, the PD defender, which she wanted to dedicate her life to before Lalo Salamanca and Howard Hamlin. She wanted to set up that pro bono practice. She talked about how in season 6, episode 1, Wine and Roses, how the dealing with the all of her PD cases was the best day of her professional life. And yeah, definitely a little bit forlorn there for sure, in my opinion. I think that was definitely, again, a lot of very intentional, very subtle elements in this story that was interwoven in respect to Kim Wexler and the Gene Takovic timeline. So, at Just Dan, thank you so much for the super chat. What kept you more on the edge of your seat, Jeff falling in the store or Gene in the house when the guy woke up? That's a tough one there for sure. I would have to, if we're being honest, it would definitely be Gene in the house because, again, I don't want to get into it too much, but let's just say I had a little bit of trouble fully buying in Nippy, so I would have to say the second one for sure. That was just definitely on the edge of my seat. I did not know how Gene was going to get out of that. And again, my goodness, just really sort of displaying to us how Gene is a sort of next level, sort of dark and sadistic sort of ways that he's going, the sort of rabbit hole he's going down when he was literally going to save himself, hit this man over the head with the urn of his late dog's ashes, who he clearly, loved and cared about very much. He had this sort of memorial to his late dog in his house. Just an unbelievably dark and sadistic scene there in order for Gene to save himself. So yeah, I'd have to say the Mark waking up in the house for sure. But yeah, my goodness, I'm absolutely on the edge of my seat here because I just don't know how it's gonna end. Not to try to skip ahead too far to the end here, but yeah, I just have absolutely no idea at Just Dan how this is going to end. I really don't. Is Gene gonna end up going out in a blaze of glory? Is he gonna end up in prison? Again, that sort of ties into Kim meeting with Cheryl a little bit, but Yeah, that is, I was definitely on the edge of my seat there for sure. Yeah, at Karen Douglas in respect to the crash, I've thought about that as well. So again, I will get to that for sure. That is a great point you raised. So, but yeah, great scene here where, again, I really enjoyed this scene when Cheryl sort of gets closure, if you will. I mean, as much closure as she can get, where she realizes that Howard was no longer, well, all the stories about Howard that were being spread were not true. It was a total fabrication that Kim is atoning for, giving the full description, naming names, naming Lalo, naming Gus, naming Mike. Of course, all those people are deceased now. But yeah, it was just very great episode here for sure. I definitely liked how Howard Hamlin was sort of vindicated here, and all of the again, and it's pretty crazy. Again, I'm no sort of psychologist or anything like that, not far from it. But again, what Cheryl says to Kim about the sort of the last thing that everyone Saul of Howard, of him being this sort of a drug addict, erratic person, is all people remember of him. And it's definitely a psychological phenomenon that I've read about for sure, about how it's sort of, I guess, recency bias. Isn't that correct? Where the last thing you see is the most sort of prominent in your memory sometimes. And yeah, I mean, despite the fact that I guess people respected Howard, I mean, the last thing they saw of him, that sort of absolute debacle that went down in the HHM conference room, is kind of what the last thing of people remember of him. And again, pretty kind of dark scene here for sure. Again, Cheryl sort of, asking Kim, like, where's the body? Again, Kim truly does not know and doesn't know if they'll ever find it again. That kind of goes to the whole super lab thing about whether or not the sort of ground floor was excavated or not, or dug out. That's a whole nother thing. And of course, Cheryl says, what happens next? And again, it was actually pretty interesting here. I remember Rich Schweigert saying in the episode entitled Fun and Games that Cheryl took a leave of absence from her practice. And I think a lot of people assume that she was a lawyer, but based on her sort of lack of knowledge of how these processes go, it definitely sounds like she's not a lawyer and she's some sort of other, she could be a doctor or something to that effect. I mean, doctors have practices, or I suppose. So kind of just an interesting piece of dialogue there for sure. And, Kim, of course, saying that, again, I will get to that, but at Tanner R, thank you so much for the super chat. Hey, Anton, I'm a little late. Did you guys talk about younger Kim's silhouette appearing at the end of the VHS intro sequence? Creepy AF. Yes, I did see a silhouette. Was that younger Kim at Tanner R? Again, I wasn't 100% sure. I did see the sort of there was a silhouette there. I wasn't sure who that was. It definitely looked like a woman's silhouette at Tanner R, but I wasn't sure if that was Kim or not. And I haven't discussed that too much. I haven't gotten too much into the sort of the disintegrating introductions for a Better Call Saul this season. I know a lot of people have discussed them, but I haven't gotten too much into them for sure. But yes, I did notice that silhouette. But again, it would be taking a total shot in the dark in respect to the symbolism of what exactly the creators were intending when they displayed that to us. So yes, I did notice that, but I didn't really get to it. And again, I've definitely noticed the disintegrating introductions at Tanner R, but I haven't, really sort of surmised or ruminated on too much in respect to what the meaning is behind them. So, but really appreciate the super chat at Tanner R, and I did notice that for sure. So, at Reno Rocha, Jeffy's wreck was a diversion or freaked out? That is a great question right there. And I definitely thought both were definitely possible, and I will get to that for sure at Reno Rocha. Again, we don't know, but definitely both of those make logical sense. It seems to be either one or the other. Either he was truly freaked out, or he was trying to create a diversion so Gene could get out of there. So yeah, that is a great point there for sure. And I will definitely get to that. And thank you so much at Reno Rocha for the super chat. Again, at Full Hay 1, again, I don't know if it's Kim's silhouette. That's what I was alluding to. I definitely noticed a silhouette, but I didn't know if it was Kim or not at Full Hay 1. So again, speculating on the sort of meaning behind those intros is pretty tough in respect to what specifically the creators are intending. We could speculate all day long on the symbolism or the sort of hidden meaning or the metaphors that they're trying to present to us in those intros. So at Full Hay 1, you are far too kind with your words. But again, I will go back and watch that for sure. Again, I can't watch it right now, obviously, but I will go back and watch that. I'm sure it is very well done, and will provide some new information. So, but yeah, again, we see Cheryl ask Kim what happens next. Kim says that, it's up to the DA whether or not that Kim is prosecuted. And, she says that she might not do it because there truly is no physical evidence or no witnesses to the event besides her late husband, not late husband, her former husband, Saul Goodman, Gene Takovic, Jimmy McGill, who she doesn't even know if he is still alive or not. And again, you wonder if Kim was sort of telling the full truth there because she did speak with him, but I guess it's technically possible that after the conversation, she wouldn't know if he was still alive. But again, I don't want to get too far into that for sure, in respect to the sort of what Kim, again, we don't know what Kim is thinking in her head, so. At Nick Russ, thank you so much for the super chat. The biggest question this week is, will you eat a Cinnabon on stream next week to celebrate the finale? LOL. I guess I could do that. I guess I technically could do that at Nick Russ. I mean, there's probably a Cinnabon around where I am somewhere. I mean, maybe, yeah. That is, yeah, I definitely could. I don't know if people want to see me eating on stream. I'm not sure if people would be into that, but I guess I could. I guess I could eat a Cinnabon. I truly, my 100% honest assessment, I've obviously had a cinnamon roll before, but I've never had a Cinnabon brand Cinnabon before. So yeah, I guess it's possible if people actually wanted to see that. I'm not so sure about that, but really appreciate the support at Nick Russ. Thank you so much for the super chat. At Dylan 2 times, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Really appreciate the support. Maybe Walt runs into Nacho at Tampico Furniture. If not, maybe the interaction with Saul regarding Brock's poisoning. I think you may be confusing Nacho with Domingo, Walt. I guess, I mean, did Nacho ever work there? I knew he and Domingo knew, I guess I see what you're getting at there. So Nacho knew Domingo from in their youth. And, again, I'm not too sure. Again, that would sort of be a brush-by cameo, if you will. Again, that's kind of interesting. I definitely think the Brock poisoning makes a lot of sense to me in respect to Walter White's appearance, the standalone appearance. But yeah, I've wondered about that, the sort of brush by. And again, I sort of, if Walter White appears again, he's in no way affiliated with the Albuquerque criminal underworld when Crazy 8 is working at Tampico, because we know he quits. He clearly quits in season, I believe, oh my goodness, either season 2 or 3 of Better Call Saul. Again, there was a scene where, again, it was season 3 of Better Call Saul, where after Nacho beats him up, he's no longer working at Tampico. And again, we sort of hear the sort of backstory of that when Crazy 8 tells Walter White that he worked for his father until one day he up and quit, and basically told him to go to hell and quit. So yeah, that's an interesting. I never considered that to Tampico, but again, I think he, again, Holly, I don't think, again, it's definitely possible, but I'm not too sure. I think Domingo would have quit working at Tampico by the time Walter White and Skyler were pregnant with Holly, so I'm not too sure about that. I guess it's possible. I'm not too sure. I don't know if we're going to see Nacho anymore in Better Call Saul at Dylan 2 times. But again, I've talked about this in my couple of my 2 past streams. I definitely think the Brock poisoning makes a lot of sense, seeing the sort of backstory of that in this final episode to sort of run between the raindrops of what Gene is going through in this next episode, and sort of juxtapose that with the terrible things he did over the course of Breaking Bad. And really appreciate the super chat at Dylan 2 times, and that just sort of my opinion on the Walter White appearance in this final episode of Better Call Saul ever. Kind of surreal to even say that. Okay, but yeah, so kind of, again, sort of getting into it here. Again, Kim saying she doesn't know whether or not that the DA is going to press charges, and because there's no physical evidence except for Saul being a witness. And of course, Cheryl says, I could sue you in civil court and take everything that you have. And Kim saying, yes, you could. But again, the sort of irony of that is that Kim has nothing. There's nothing that Cheryl could take from her. Cheryl already has all of the money in the world. I mean, for all intents and purposes, she is 10, 15, 20, 30 times more wealthy than Kim Wexler. It would just be about sort of, humiliating Kim and I guess, taking every last thing she had from her. And just, I guess, if that's the only way to, I guess, truly have her be morally culpable, would be about the principle of it. But again, I'm not too sure if Cheryl even wants to go down that rabbit hole there. So yeah, that was an interesting piece of dialogue there for sure, where she says, I could sue you in civil courts. But again, Kim doesn't have anything. It would be more about the principle of it all. So it's it's interesting for sure. And again, you just wonder how Kim Wexler is going to tie into this final episode as well. And I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be any overlap between them, with Jean being on the run and with Kim being in Albuquerque right now. Maybe again, who knows? Maybe she goes back to Omaha. Back, but again, she doesn't know where Jean is at the same time. So again, I'm really sort of just speculating. I'm shooting in the dark here, in respect to what is to come for Kim Wexler in the very final episode of the series. But yeah, of course, following this scene, we then see this scene here, the sort of breaking down of Kim Wexler. That we see right here, that Nick Russ alluded to here. And yeah, like I talked about in respect to all the comments about this very impactful scene, again, just in my opinion, again, I don't know what was going through Kim's head. No one does. We don't know what she was thinking about here in this scene. But yeah, just in my opinion, just the stoic Kim Wexler probably hadn't broken down and really thought about this in probably 6 years since it happened in the year 2004. And yeah, I touched on this a little bit earlier in the stream. But yeah, again, I don't know what's going through her head here in this scene. I really don't. I mean, Johnny's you say deep down she still loves him. Again, I don't know if that's, maybe in some respects that maybe that's a little bit nebulous and a little bit more nuanced. But very impactful. And like I said, my sort of again, I think just a vast assortment of emotions going through Kim Wexler's head here in this scene. Again, no idea what. Again, guilt is one of them. Guilt, empathy for what she did to Cheryl and Howard. Guilt for what she did to Cheryl and Howard. Just Dan, I will get to the Sandpiper question for sure in respect to that scene in Saul Goodman's office. But yeah, again, we don't know. Again, shame, guilt at Scott Horwitz. I think all those. Again, I think a vast assortment of emotions were going through her head, and I really don't think, just based on my interpretation of this episode, again, just my opinion. Yeah, at David D, the Waterworks for sure. I really, yeah, maybe that's a great point at Gringo Troller. She was able to grieve after telling Cheryl. Maybe again, she was holding on to the truth. Again, maybe she was repressing it and just shoving it deep down inside of her, her true emotions about this. Again, we saw her sort of break down a little bit in respect to her divorce to Jimmy. But again, she did cry, but I remember she sort of composed herself a little bit there. Yet at Karen Douglas, emotional release, well said as well. And yeah, again, I just think that it was just. Again, I really feel like she had just repressed this emotional release, as you say, Karen Douglas, for over half a decade. And I think very just unceremoniously in a very public open space on this bus, we saw her break down. She could not control her emotions here. She was just overcome with everything that she did in her life and all the, I guess, poor decisions she made, and just trying to just emotionally cope with everything she did by living this normal middle-class existence in Florida, far away from Albuquerque, trying to just be a good person, as good of a person as she could be, just being a normal good person. But she did these bad things. They were with her this entire time, and when she finally just sort of atoned for her sins as much as she could by giving her affidavit to the AD and also giving it to Cheryl as well, it's really, there's nothing else she could do. She could really just say, she could really just emotionally break down and just feel terrible for all of the people that she hurt, as well as, probably feeling a lot of guilt in what she did as well. So again, that's just my interpretation. I mean, I know Ray Seahorn, who portrayed this character, probably has an interpretation. I know Vince Gilligan, who wrote this episode, probably has an interpretation about what the exact meaning was behind this scene. But yeah, very, very impactful scene here for sure, and brought an end to Kim Wexler in this episode in the Gene Takovic timeline. So yeah, really, really enjoyed this sort of Kim Wexler Gene story arc here, how it pertained to Cheryl and Howard. Again, I really didn't even think we'd sort of be able to see this sort of Cheryl getting this closure here on screen. Again, of course, oh ye of little faith as I was in respect to these creators of writing an unbelievable story and being able to very just unbelievably well being able to display it to us on screen in this episode. So yeah, just absolutely unbelievable here. Great writing for sure. And yeah, a lot to think about here in respect to this storyline of Kim Wexler. A lot of closure, a lot of emotions for sure. Justin Cruz, she kind of did turn herself in. That's kind of what she did. She gave her affidavit, but as you know, she said to Cheryl, there's really no physical proof to prosecute on. It's sort of her story behind it all, but there's no proof of any of it. There's no body. There's nothing. There's no physical evidence. Has been a common trope over the course of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So she did turn herself in. So yeah, that's what she did at Justin Cruz in this episode. But yeah, following this, the continuation here of Gene breaking into the Mark's house that we saw at the end of the previous episode. Man, what a scene here. Again, at the edge of my seat here, my heart was pumping. I couldn't believe what was happening here. I really wanted to see what was going on. Just unbelievable scene here. At Ronald Nash Jr., thank you so much for the super chat, man. Really appreciate the support. Kim was so desperate to feel anything at all that it led her to come clean to Cheryl. She was so void of any real emotion at all for 6 years that after the call with Jimmy, she needed to feel something again. That is a great assessment there at Ronald Nash Jr., and thank you again so much for the super chat. I did notice that when Kim was in Florida, again, there wasn't a lot of emotion by her. She was very sort of, truly the analogy really works for basically all of the characters who appeared in Better Call Saul, where when they appear in the Gene Takovic timeline, like characters like Francesca and Gene and Kim have, there really is no more color in their life. There is no more vibrance. There's no emotion. I mean, the symbolism of the sort of black and white trope of the Gene Takovic timeline is just unbelievable. I mean, would you expect anything else from these creators? Of course not. But yeah, I definitely did notice that there was no real emotion in her life. She kind of was just a very almost, for lack of a better term, she was just living a very boring existence, maybe even very similar to Walter White in many respects. Just kind of, a boring sort of middle-class existence, no real vibrance, no real emotion, just kind of going about the motions in their life. And yeah, I really like that assessment there where she hadn't really felt any emotion for years. It's something that, again, I really like that assessment for sure at Ronald Nash Jr. And yeah, again, that's interesting how her feeling clean, her coming clean, was so she could feel any human emotion at all. That's interesting. That's an interesting assessment. I think that could be a part of it for sure. I think for sure that could be a part of it. Again, I hadn't even considered that. I think that's a definite, very possible interpretation of Kim Wexler's character in this episode. So yeah, that's another sort of interesting aspect of this very intriguing, very deep emotional scene here at the end of that previous act. And yeah, I definitely agree. It's something I definitely noticed when we saw her backstory in Florida, how there was no emotion in her life. Really, there wasn't. And yeah, like I said, the sort of black and white trope is perfect. All of the color sort of stripped from characters after, the proverbial shit hit the fan, when all of these characters who were involved in the sort of Saul Goodman, Walter White, Breaking Bad world, after it all came tumbling crashing down, this is what they were sort of left with, no real emotion, no real color. So yeah, I really like that assessment for sure at Ronald Nash Jr. And thank you again so much for the super chat. Really appreciate the support, man. Thank you so much. Ooh, but yeah, I mean, this scene here, like I was talking about, this scene here of Gene breaking into the house, again, edge of my seat here again. He hits the piano key to make sure that the Mark is truly passed out from the alcohol consumption and the barbiturates. And yeah, so again, he goes through the scam. He gets all of the sort of banking and personal information, the routing number. Again, the way that this show can just interject humor with such a deep and dark story matter is just unbelievable. When Saul, Gene, Jimmy is trying to find the passwords in the guy's house and he can't find them, of course he's using the lights, and of course he finds out that the passwords are underneath the light. Great scene there for sure. I mean, absolutely hilarious when I saw that. And yeah, so again, great scene here. Again, you're on the edge of your seat. You're wondering if Gene's gonna get away with it, but He again, the passwords being at the bottom of the light, absolutely hilarious. Very well done, of course. But again, he's about to leave here. The scam, despite the fact that he broke into this home, he did this very rash, illogical decision of breaking the glass. He got the information, he got the routing number, he got all of the personal information that he can use for the identity fraud scam. He can literally go out the door. The cops aren't here yet, but again, he has this moment of introspection and decides, wait a minute, I'm not gonna do this. And of course, he makes really exemplifying the fact that this is truly just emotional coping for Saul, where he's making these very irrational decisions. And again, for lack of a better term, Gene here is really front-running when he decides to turn around and he decides to sort of just, rob this guy of just personal effects. He steals his watch, he takes a cigar, he has a drink in his house. And of course, it's horribly illogical. And of course, in the grand scheme of things, this decision, as ever so small as it appeared, this ended up being his downfall. If he had just went out that door and went into the cab with Jeff, Jeff would have never been arrested. And Marion, again, skipping ahead here to the end of the episode, Marion would have never gotten suspicious and looked on the computer. If he had just left the house and not, went for this sort of victory lap here, sort of adding insult to injury of stealing from this guy's house and raiding his liquor cabinets after he robs him, he would have not been caught. So again, very, very poor emotional decision here by Gene Takovic. And of course, like I said, if he went out that door, he would have been absolutely okay. It would have just looked like he was, getting picked up for any other fare. They probably could have drove away before the cops even went there. And again, this ended up being Gene's downfall here for sure. And of course, like I talked about a little bit earlier, that's the very just extremely sort of dark scene here where Gene was, again, in order to save himself after he realized that the Mark woke up, was going to hit him over the head with this urn of his late dog who he truly loved so much, this cancer patient's late dog. Very ironic when he sort of used the sort of fake dog Nippy as part of his scam to undermine Marion. He was then going to use the urn, the ashes of this dog, and was clearly going to hit him over the head with it in order to get him to pass out. And of course, the one thing that stops him, again, we don't know if he actually would have done it. I mean, it really looked like he would have done it to me. But after the Mark regains consciousness and looks on his phone a little bit, and Gene is trying to make his escape, he then once again passes out. But of course, following this, after he's trying to go out the front door here, after he incapacitates, or after the Mark is again incapacitated, he then sees the cop car outside of the front door, and again he knows he can't go out the door here because again it's not too clear whether or not he could get away with it. Again, we don't know if the cops are here because of maybe the sort of a security system tripped or something to that effect. Of course, Gene and Jeff don't know it at this time, but again, it's very ironic because it appears that, of course, while Gene doesn't want to go out because he sees the cop car, while Jeff is clearly in panic mode here because the cops are right behind him. What's absolutely hilarious about this is it appears that the cops just happened to be at the right place at the right time. They just were having their lunch. They just happened to pull across, or I guess late night dinner. They happened to just pull into this sort of neighborhood and were just eating their dinner, or I guess late night dinner, I guess on the the night shift here in respect to working in Albuquerque. And just sort of at the right place at the right time. And again, you wonder, maybe Gene could have just walked out of the house very casually and driven away. But again, at the same time, that probably wouldn't have been a great idea because eventually the Mark would have woken up and likely flagged down the police officers if they were still there in front of his home. And of course, they would have seen this sort of man with the glasses who was balding sort of go into the cop car. So again, as the sort of question went, whether or not Jeff made the decision to cause that accident, whether or not it was on purpose or whether or not it was just him being emotionally erratic and trying to get away. To tell you the truth, I think it might be a little bit of both, but it would make a lot of sense to me that he would crash the car intentionally just to try to make a diversion so Gene could walk out the front door, because you definitely don't want the cops to see this man walk into this cab and maybe sort of get a make on the license plate. Again, I don't know whether or not the sort of car is equipped with a dash cam or anything to that effect, so again, we don't know. Again, it makes a lot of sense to me that Jeff would have tried to create this diversion here and crash his car. But yeah, I'm not too sure. But again, in the end, again, the hilarious scene there when Jeff sort of crawls out of the car and looks at the police officers and Gene makes his escape. Hilarious scene there for sure. And again, we don't know whether or not Jeff did this intentionally or not. It makes a lot of sense to me that he would do it, but while that makes the most sense, who knows? Maybe at the same time, he truly was just emotionally erratic, like he was saying to Gene when he was making his phone call at the jailhouse, calling him, getting his one phone call. So yeah, again, not to try to get too far ahead of myself here, but yeah, just unbelievable scene here. Just unbelievable scene. Like I talked about, Gene making that very poor decision to not go out the door when he could have, to to showboat, to front run, to do that unnecessary victory lap as a part of this emotional coping, just really sort of flying way too close to the sun. Almost actions of someone who seems to want to get caught, in my opinion. So just, yeah, unbelievable sort of writing here in the scene. I really, really enjoyed this scene here for sure. Of course, foreshadowing, like I said, that phone call that comes immediately prior to the absolute final climax here of this episode. But yeah, kind of getting ahead here. Yeah, again, unbelievable scene here. Again, I mean, I'm running out of superlatives here to give this episode, but yeah, this scene here, right, when Kim, again, we now know, again, I always thought that maybe Kim never saw Saul after the divorce, but now we know that, again, likely right around 2004. I'm guessing this was probably very close to the divorce. Again, at JV, I will get to that for sure in respect to sort of Saul's and Kim's reaction here in this divorce scene. But yeah, Kim's here signing the divorce papers. She sees Francesca, and she sees Francesca. Again, another sort of great little subplot here of that scene where they don't really interact with each other. They're not very friendly. Again, I don't think it's by any fault of either character. Again, the circumstances aren't the greatest. Again, Francesca is much more hardened over compared to how she was when she was working for Jimmy and Kim in season 2 of A Better Call Saul in that former dentist office. Wexler, the law offices of Wexler and Goodman, or Wexler McGill, with the logo that looked like the stock market crash, of course. But yeah, great scene here, and yeah, I mean, so much to go over here, but again, one huge piece of reveal here was that Saul saying to Kim, you really should have taken your share of the Sandpiper money, but of course, Kim essentially being revealed to us that she could not accept any of this money, and of course, Saul, being who he is, he took all of it. He took all of the nearly $2 million that was entitled to him by the Sandpiper Crossing settlement. Again, Kim probably being absolutely emotionally racked with guilt, could not take that money. That was sort of revealed to us here, and again, Saul even saying, how about Florida, and Kim trying to answer, and then Saul saying, yeah, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Again, very interesting scene here for sure, where Saul just, again, it really seems as though, he just had no emotional sort of attachment to Kim Wexler whatsoever. Again, a lot of nuance here for sure, when he basically says, all right, Kim, have a nice life, and sort of doesn't even look at her, and, says, to Francesca, basically, all right, let's go back to work, whatever, Kim's gone. Kind of akin to what he said to Kim Wexler in a season 4 of A Better Call Saul. I believe in the episode entitled Wiedersehen, when she said when he got rejected to be readmitted as a lawyer, and Kim said, "What did you say about Chuck?" And eventually, Chuck, he said, "What about Chuck? He used to be alive, now he's dead. So what?" And kind of taking the same sort of mentality with Kim here. Kim used to be my wife, now she's not. All right, time to move on. Who cares? So again, very complicated relationship here. Again, it's not a sort of 90s rom-com thing where the sort of the lovers who were once together and divorced, but they still really love each other. Again, it's not written like that, nor would I think anyone want it to be written like that. There's so much complexity and nuance to all of this. I mean, kind of juxtaposing. Again, this conversation here was the last time they spoke, likely, very, very likely, kind of for basically concretely displayed to us, until Gene Takovic would then call Kim Wexler from Omaha, Nebraska. So again, also displaying to us how he knew where Kim Wexler was all along. Again, likely keeping tabs on her, despite the fact that they, didn't speak to each other probably in 6 years. But yeah, a lot of nuance here for sure. And yeah, kind of a tough scene to watch in many respects when you just think about, these two characters and the relationship that they used to be in, and how Saul really just, is moving on with his life, and Kim sort of is too. Again, they're not really addressing the emotional pink elephant in the room with everything that happened with Lalo and Howard. Again, we don't know if that conversation even ever took place. We don't know how many sort of days or months or weeks or how we're between fun and games in this scene right here. I don't believe a specific date was given to us. But yeah, just unbelievable scene here for sure. And then, of course, following this, again, I could go on and on and on in respect to what the characters were thinking. But like I said, we don't know. Of course, we don't know what was going on in the characters' heads. But of course, following this very unceremonious divorce, it's then followed by the unbelievable sort of cameo appearance of none other than Emilio Koyama, Jesse Pinkman, Captain Cook's former meth cook partner, if you will. Again, trying to find a shot of him here. Again, I don't know. It's going to be tough to find an actual shot of Emilio here, but again, very similar, akin to the cameo of Spooge, where again it just sort of displayed to us that he was a client. We don't get the actual nitty gritty of it. We imagine that it's going to be again based on the conversation that happens with Jesse Pinkman. Following this, the brush by cameo, if you will, for all intents and purposes. But yeah, it was. Pretty crazy here to see. We got to see that backstory that, of course, was originally presented to us in season 2 of Breaking Bad, the episode entitled Better Call Saul, where Jesse Pinkman says to Walter White, you remember Emilio? This dude got Emilio off twice. Both times they had him like dead to rights, then proved dudes like Houdini. And of course, it was absolutely implied that the first time was when Emilio was arrested in the pilot, when Jesse was engaging in sexual intercourse with the neighbor lady, as Crazy 8 said himself in the pilot. And so, yeah, I mean, great scene here where Emilio goes into Walt's office. A very short cameo scene by Emilio, very akin to the conversation with Spooge. But yeah, of course, following this, we then see, again, as soon as she left, I knew it was going to happen. Again, I mean, before we even saw the silhouette here of Jesse, I knew it was going to happen. Again, I talked about it here a little bit earlier in the early part of in the very beginning of my video. But yeah, this was it here. This was the behind the scenes fan footage that I discussed about a year ago. And my goodness, no wonder they did not want anyone to see this, and they were trying so hard to avoid anyone to see this. Again, they blocked off everything, and the sort of camera shot was from very, very far away. Man, imagine if they sort of gave it away here and Jesse Pinkman actually appeared. Again, the behind the scenes fan footage didn't make out the person of the person whose cigarette Kim was lighting. We only saw a clear shot of Kim, but man, that would have been quite the giveaway there if that YouTuber had gotten that footage. But yeah, great scene here where paths crossed. I remember everyone always hoped. I heard I was reading online how everyone would love to see a scene of Kim representing Jesse, and while she was no longer a lawyer when this scene took place, we definitely got to see the sort of brush by cameo happen where, he bums a cigarette off her here in the scene, and then, even says that he recognizes her because she represented another friend of Jesse Pinkman, none other than Combo Christian Ortega, who of course we knew from Breaking Bad season 1, who died in season 3, of season 2 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Mandela when he was shot by Tomas. And of course, we then hear, Jesse give the backstory that Hank Schrader gave to the DEA in respect to a Combo being so low rep, where I think the only arrest he had was stealing a quote-unquote baby Jesus from a Knights of Columbus major, and that was in the series finale of season 2 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled ABQ, following Combo's death. So yeah, kind of very interesting to sort of get all of the Breaking Bad dialogue interwoven here in this Jesse Pinkman flashback scene. Kind of a cool to get a combo. We have a Christian Ortega combo again, not appearance, but to have even his just his character referenced here in this episode was pretty cool. And of course, Jesse kind of also giving that backstory to how Emilio's facing some real time and asking whether or not Saul is a good lawyer, and talking about the sort of late night commercials being by which Crazy 8 wants to be represented by Saul. Again, a little bit of foreshadowing for what is to come with Marion at the very end of this episode in respect to the commercial being the big reveal of the end of this episode. But yeah, great scene here for sure, where we got to see the sort of brush by appearance of who I mean, I would have never, in hindsight, it makes a lot of sense just based on, how Emilio was likely going to be interjected in this scene, but still, before this season started, even before, in season 1 of Better Call Saul, when I was watching the pilot episode, I could have never imagined seeing a scene of Kim Wexler and Jesse Pinkman. I think it would have been absolutely, just almost inconceivable to even think about. So yeah, just great scene here for sure. And again, I really enjoyed it. Like I talked about a little bit earlier, very, very smart decision by the creators to have these scenes sort of at nighttime. The camera much more forgiving of the fact that Aaron Paul is probably 21 years older than the character he is portraying right now. So yeah, great scene here again. Kim, not really answering in respect to whether or not Saul's a good lawyer, saying that he was when I knew him. And then the sort of conversation ends very unceremoniously. But yeah, unbelievable scene here for sure. At Rena Rocha, yeah, again, she's living a very boring sort of basic existence there in respect. It's a great call right there. I do remember that scene of her doing the puzzles in the kitchen when she's speaking with her presumed to be boyfriend there in that scene. So yeah, at Maxwell Keegan, that was some pretty funny small talk for sure. Uh, yeah, yeah, kind of at a loss for words here for this scene. Just still a little bit surreal that we saw it. And again, this apparently sort of ties a bow on Jesse Pinkman in the plot of Better Call Saul, and in the grand scheme of things, again, I think it's kind of very cool, very well done. Again, when we sort of have to remember that Saul is really the sort of main story here, and any appearance by Jesse Pinkman wasn't going to be solely about him in Breaking Bad. It would, of course, have to tie into Saul Goodman's story. So it is it is a it was a great scene here for sure. At Hugh Jassel, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Really appreciate it. What did her "I'm glad you're alive" really mean? Yeah, that is a great pull right there for sure. Right before she hangs up the phone, and I think she's being honest in many respects. I think that's sort of a much more subtle, nuanced, artistic way of saying "I still love you," as opposed to the sort of cheesy '90s rom-com way of saying "I still love you," where, despite everything they've been through, I think she's genuinely sincere where she says, "I'm glad you are still alive. Despite the fact that I maybe no longer have feelings for you and what we had is absolutely dead and gone, you were a part of my life at one point and I truly, cared about you at one time. And I, despite all the terrible things you've done, I still care for you. And in maybe even a sort of, very, undescribable, sort of maybe even a little bit confusing, twisted way, I still love you as a person despite all the terrible things you've done." So I think she was being sincere. "I'm glad you're still alive." Again, that's my interpretation. I don't know if she's being sarcastic and saying, "I wish you were dead, I hate you," but that's sort of my interpretation at Hugh Jassel. That's sort of my interpretation of that dialogue right before she hangs up the phone. So again, definitely entitled to, definitely there's multiple interpretations to that scene for sure. But yeah, that was sort of my interpretation of Kim Wexler's dialogue there in that scene. At Full Hay One, that is funny, man. That is funny. Again, I got man. I got Barry McCockner definitely entered the chat there with that fake poster. After the legitimate leak of the Suzuki Esteem teaser came out, I think a lot of people out there were trying to jump on the troll train there. In respect, again, I saw more than one fake poster for Waterworks. There was another one out there of the Safiro and Yeho top as well at Full Hay One. So yeah, I got definitely. But again, I don't know. I like this poster again. I kind of like the sort of shout out to Kim Wexler, the foreshadowing there. So yes, at Chauncey Holt. That in hindsight, that's exactly what that was. So, but yeah, great scene here for sure. And then of course, following this, the end of the Kim Wexler and Jesse Pinkman scene that happens here. We then of course see the running between the raindrops, as Peter Gould said. We then see the Gene Takovic timeline. So at Hugh Jassel, it's all good, man. I appreciate the support, man. Thank you so much. So at Ronald Nash Jr., that's interesting. So you're basically saying, in hindsight, after all of these years in 2010, do you think Kim knows that the person she shared a cigarette with at the time back in 2004 was the infamous Jesse Pinkman who was linked to Heisenberg? Again, I don't know. It's technically possible. Again, I don't know if how much we all remember these sort of very trivial interactions that we have. I mean, I would imagine that you have interactions with people all the time. Someone saying, "What time is it?" Or again, they did have quite the conversation there. I would imagine she would maybe remember it. I mean, it was quite the conversation there. Again, at the same time, she seemed pretty preoccupied with the fact that she just divorced her husband, Saul Goodman, Jimmy McGill. But yeah, it's a great question. I think it's definitely possible that she could have remembered that, one-time interaction 6 years later, but it's also possible she forgot. I don't know if she has a sort of autobiographical memory or anything like that at Ronald Nash Jr., but that's a great question. I'm not too sure. She may. It's definitely possible, but at the same time, I don't know how many sort of trivial interactions Kim had over the course of her life and whether or not she remembered all of them. I don't know if she maybe came out to Florida the very next day. Maybe it was the sort of last conversation she had with anyone in Albuquerque. So maybe she did remember all these years at Ronald Nash Jr. And that's actually a pretty interesting point you raised for sure. But yeah, following this, of course, Gene, obviously realizing that Jeff got arrested, he goes home, he puts his trophies, if you will. Again, it's not really about the money. It's almost akin to just kleptomania, if you will, in respect to him stealing from the mark there, his watches and whatnot. But of course, he knows the phone call is coming, and Jeff talks to him. He feigns being his father. Of course, long story long here. Before I get into that, at SteveBobJD, thank you so much for the super chat. Any thoughts on why the "I trusted you" line from Marion seemed to impact Gene? Did he remember him? Did it remind him of how he messed with the elderly as Jimmy? Interesting sort of thought there at SteveBobJD. I hadn't even considered that until you brought that up in respect to if he sort of remembered, back in the sort of Sandpiper Crossing days when he was doing elder law back in season 1 of A Better Call Saul. And, he saw how sort of people took advantage of old people and sort of, didn't care about them and would manipulate and take advantage of them. And he was the one sort of looking out for them and, the ones who used to trust him. I never even considered that. That is a great point at SteveBobJD in respect to whether or not his elder law days all the way back in season 1 and season 2 and season 3 of A Better Call Saul, whether or not that impacted his decision not to, to off Marion, if you will. And again, I don't know. Like at the same time, I don't know. Maybe Gene never had it in him. Maybe he wasn't someone who could kind of kill with his bare hands. Like I said, say what you will about Gene Takovic, but Lalo Salamanca would have gone full Hans Landa on Marion, in my opinion, and would have strangled her to death, just like he did when he jumped over the table in Inglourious Bastards, and he would have had no conscience about it whatsoever and would have slept like a baby. So yeah, that's Again, that's an interesting point you raised. I never even considered that. If clearly the "I trusted you" line had a big impact on him. It seemed to be, at least that's the way my interpretation of it. But yeah, you wonder. Again, I hadn't even considered. You're absolutely right about his elder law days in the first 3 seasons of Better Call Saul and whether or not that would have impacted her. Or impacted him after she said that. Excuse me. So yeah, great point there for sure at SteveBobJD. True, as far as we know, Jimmy/Gene/Saul never killed anyone directly. Yeah, I don't know if he has it in him. I don't know if he had it in him to sort of kill like that. I don't know. That would, again, I was thinking like that's a sort of next step thing. I mean, he could have. I mean, in full honesty, he absolutely. This was a sort of. I mean, in full honesty, I mean, for what it was, she was a feeble old lady. He absolutely could have, in that moment, he could have strangled her to death. I mean, as dark as that is, he could have done it to save himself. And of course, after that, he could have made his escape too. It would have been, probably hours or, maybe even days before something happened, before the police would even know that. And he could have, called Ed to disappear. But now, again, Jimmy is in quite the predicament here, as the teaser says. So the police had just been called, so I don't know how he gets away with all this. Again, he has nothing on him. He doesn't have his Band-Aid tin. He has no money. Again, I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but yeah, again, we're kind of sort of getting into the sort of final countdown here. But again, and thank you so much again at SteveBobJD for the super chat. Really appreciate it. But yeah, to sort of kind of get into the very final scene here, he feigns being his father, basically with his legal jargon, knowing that, Jeff will be fine as long as Marion bails him out. There's no evidence there, and he'll be fine in respect to, the police pressing charges. He'll sit tight. He'll get bailed out. He's not going to do any actual real time. At least that's sort of Saul reassuring him. And in many respects, it's likely true because, There's no real evidence he doesn't have any of the stolen items. Of course, Saul was the one who broke in. There's nothing there to really sort of, dead to rights smoking gun, pin it on Jeff. So, again, despite the fact that Gene made this horribly irrational decision to go back and rob this Mark, instead of just going out the door when he could, despite all of that, he's maybe going to be able to salvage this horrible decision and kind of get away with it scot-free. And, of course, when he does this, he calls Marion and to have her bail him out because, it would make more sense for a family member to do it. But, again, the dialogue here is so important here in this scene when in respect to Gene calling Marion. And again, after she talks to Gene about how Jeff had always been in trouble and talking about how back in Albuquerque you needed a bail bondsman. At the same time, Gene said, "Oh, but Omaha's different. You don't need a bail bondsman." And again, this sort of gets the sort of ideas of percolating in a Marion's head, where she's very suspicious of this man here, of Gene. And of course, she asks if Buddy's in trouble, and he says no. Why would he be? And of course, she remembers looking out the window in the previous episode where he sort of kicked Buddy out of the garage. And of course, Buddy wouldn't have gotten involved in all this because he was, Gene clearly told him not to be a part of whatever they were doing. And of course, all the sort of ideas are percolating in Marion's head here. And despite the fact that, yes, that she trusted Gene and he came across as very trustworthy. And again, in hindsight, the laptop was absolutely foreshadowing. We're following this kind of conversation where she puts two and two together about this man Gene here, and she opens up her laptop again. Gene sort of just driving along, singing along here, thinking, "I got away with the whole thing scot-free. Life is great. I'm great. Everything's great." Again, Marion doesn't answer the door. She has her headphones on, so he has to go around the back door. And of course, the big reveal here when Marion, says she doesn't want to go to the police station, that you go without me. Then of course, he can hear the dialogue for sure. And of course, great callback. Yes, at John James, at David D. Great, hilarious piece of writing there where, of course, Marion wouldn't Google, the answer of who this con man from Albuquerque is. Of course she would use Ask Jeeves. Of course she would. Again, they had to write that friggin' hilarious piece of dialogue in this episode here. Just unbelievable. So, yeah, at Glowing Unknown, that was what he called Francesca there in that scene, right? When Kim was leaving. Yeah, another hilarious piece of writing there, so... At Nick Russ, that is absolutely hilarious, man. Who knew Ask Jeeves would be the downfall of Saul Goodman? Yeah, who knew? I don't think that website exists anymore. But yeah, that is hilarious how she used the defunct search engine Ask Jeeves instead of Google. Great piece of writing there. But of course, Saul then becoming very suspicious of Marion's actions here. He then opens up the laptop, and of course, the little bit of color here, of course, from when he was Saul Goodman shining into his glasses from the commercial. I believe it was the first commercial we ever saw of Saul Goodman in season 2 of Breaking Bad, in the episode entitled Better Call Saul. It definitely said, "Hi, I'm Saul Goodman. Do you know that you have rights? The Constitution says you do." The commercial that was playing in Jesse Pinkman's apartment in that episode, at the very beginning of that episode. And entitled Better Call Saul after Badger was arrested. And just an unbelievable scene here. Again, Gene tries to, do plausible deniability here, saying, "You think that's me? That's not me." Of course, Marion's saying, "I typed in Albuquerque con man and you came up." Basically saying, "I found out who you are." Gene trying to save himself here. And of course, when she's about to make the phone call, Gene very abruptly rips out the cord from the phone so she can't make the call. But then, of course, following this, she's then going to use the LifeLock thing here. And yeah, like I said, I wonder when Gene sort of was going to maybe strangle her with the telephone cord, I wondered whether or not he was absolutely going to do it. And I talked about this a little bit. I don't know. That's a great point that you raised, Steve Bob JD, of whether or not the "I trusted you" dialogue had anything to do with it when he took the life alert thing out of her hand. And really, he could have ripped this off her neck. He could have killed her, and he could have saved himself, like I talked about here. And for any Family Guy friends out there, it's a little bit morbid, but again, there was that one sort of episode where they do the fairy tale stories, and like one of them is Jack and the Beanstalk, and Peter, being very Family Guy, being basically saying, all right, kids, that's the moral of the story with Jack and the Beanstalk. If you're going to steal, also be willing to kill. And so, as morbid and dark as that is, I mean, it's kind of true. I mean, if Gene had just, no half measures, I mean, this was kind of just conceding. Oh, this was basically a half measure. I mean, as Mike Ehrmantraut said, no half measures. A full measure would have been, as dark as it is, it would have been the right decision here for Gene Takovic. But again, he couldn't do it. Again, it's up to the audience's interpretation of why he didn't do it, about whether or not Saul Gene even had it in him to do this. But yeah, quite the storyline for sure. But of course, following him basically letting go and kind of being almost consigned to his fate, where whether I'm either going to kill this woman or she is going to call the police. There's really no in between here. Either I am going to save myself by killing this old lady, or she's going to call the police. And he goes with the second one. He couldn't do it. He couldn't go full Lalo Salamanca. I mean, that would have been quite the story arc there for sure, if he kind of went full Lalo and killed this with impunity to save himself. That would have been a very, very dark twist. Oh my goodness, at Relax and Sleep, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Thank you for all the great Better Call Saul content, Anton. My goodness gracious, Relax and Sleep. That is too kind, man. Oh my goodness, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, man. Wow, I'm at a loss for words, man. Thank you so much, man. Go Maple Leafs for sure, man. I remember that for sure. I apologize for streaming during the NHL playoffs, man. I'm sorry the Maple Leafs didn't win it. Did not win it this year. Maybe next year will be their year. I apologize, man. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Wow, that is too generous at Relax and Sleep. Go again. I'm not too well versed in hockey, man. But go Maple Leafs, man. I hope it's their year. So, wow, thank you so much. Relax and Sleep. You are too kind. Yes, at Liam Kimberly, there's always next year. Yeah, wow. Not a loss of words there. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, really appreciate that support. Wow. But yeah, unbelievable episode here for sure. And yeah, I just don't know. I do not know whether or not Gene had it in him. It's up to the audience's interpretation. And yeah, it's pretty crazy here, man. I really, again, I don't know. I was wondering. For a split second, when he sort of, unraveled that cord and also almost made it like a garrote. Is that what it is? Am I pronouncing that correctly? That Mike used to kill Gav in season 4 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Salute. I really wondered if he was almost gonna like garrote Marion here and strangle her with the umbilical cord. An umbilical cord. Oh my goodness gracious! You're making me stumble over my words here. Relax and Sleep with the telephone cord. But yeah, I mean, I wondered if he was gonna do it, and of course he couldn't do it. Marion then pushes the button. The life alert asks Marion, "Are you okay?" And then she says, "I'm not okay. There's a criminal in my house who's threatening me. He's a wanted man. His name is Saul Goodman." And of course, the life alert says the police have been called, and then of course Saul makes his escape out the house, and thus ending this unbelievable episode of season 6 of Better Call Saul. I know Vince Gilligan doesn't need me to say he's a friggin' genius, and this was an unbelievable episode, but I'm gonna say it anyway. This was an unbelievable episode, Vince Gilligan. He clearly doesn't need just some guy on the internet who likes to talk into a camera, tell him that, but unbelievable episode here for sure. And the teaser that was revealed at the end of this episode was 100% legit in respect to the Suzuki Esteem and Gene Takovic, at least allegedly Gene Takovic saying, Hoover, Max Extract, Pressure Probe, Model 60, over and over again, clearly sort of making overtures to Ed to disappear because, what other choice does Gene have here in respect to what he is going to do following him getting made like this and the police being on his tail. I mean, again, we don't know how far away he lives from Marion. He has nothing on him. Again, he has that Band-Aid full of diamonds, but again, if we use El Camino, and despite the fact I wholeheartedly admit I was not the biggest fan. I still remember the story. But if we go back to using El Camino as a reference, when Jesse Pinkman wanted the extraction to Alaska, when he needed a very specific amount of money, Ed the Disappearer would not take him unless he had the exact dollar amount. And wasn't he like a couple dollars short? That was the whole premise of it. So again, I don't know if Ed the Disappearer will accept a Band-Aid tin full of diamonds. I don't know. I mean, this final episode, Saul Gone, is going to be unbelievable. I can only imagine what is going to happen in respect to, what comes next for, Saul Goodman, Gene Takovic when he's on the run like this. Again, he's made no preparations whatsoever to flee. I mean, if he was red hot when he called Ed the Disappearer in season 4 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Quite a Ride, I mean, I don't know what this is. I mean, if that is being red hot, I don't know what this is. This is being like in the inside of a volcano hot. So I don't know what's gonna happen here. I really don't. I probably will watch I probably will have to rewatch El Camino at Voltaire 325 because I am planning on talking about Jesse Pinkman this week. I absolutely am. In respect to El Camino, I have that's the one iteration of this universe that I have not yet discussed, and it's actually perfectly hot and nuclear hot at Faisal. I apologize if I mispronounced that name, but yeah, nuclear hot there for sure. And in respect to Saul Goodman, and yeah, just based on this sort of, I'll have to go back. I was going to rewatch that sort of movie anyway this week because of that the video I was going to make in respect to Jesse Pinkman. At Trish D, thank you so much for the super chat. Thoughts on why we'll see his burned out Suzuki Esteem all these years later? Yeah, great question for sure at Trish D. I sort of didn't even really have a time to speculate on that much when I sort of made that video about this sort of leak that happened with this teaser. But that's again, great question there for sure. I have no idea. Again, it likely has something to do with, as Peter Gould said, running between the raindrops. And again, I mean, this is more going to be a flashback, if anything. I don't know if there's going to be no rhyme or reason for him to go to this burned out car. I mean, we're likely going to see a lot of the maybe very poor decisions that Saul made when even Jimmy made, where even Kim said to him in the episode entitled Bagman that, you are a lawyer, not a bagman. This is a bad decision. And, in many respects, it was a bad decision to go down that bad choice road and to pick up that money at the border. So, again, I think it's going to be kind of the running between the raindrops at Trish D, if I had to make a guess. In respect to what the sort of significance of this is. I think we're going to see a lot of flashbacks to Breaking Bad, maybe even the Better Call Saul here. The Suzuki Esteem here is just, even more just unbelievable food for thought in respect to what is going to come in this. Again, so bittersweet, so surreal. One episode left of this entire universe. So, yeah, quite at Dave B, that is funny. Quite the question for sure at Trish D, and thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate the support. At Dylan 2 times, did you see that the Cancer Man had $737,000 in his account? I missed that. I think I did notice 700 something, but yes, that definitely makes a lot of sense to me when he looked at his sort of investment information. And of course, 737 is of course the infamous amount of money that Walter White worked out in his head in the episode entitled 737, the premiere of season 2 of Breaking Bad. When he worked out the amount of money that he needed to leave his family in the car with Jesse after Tuco killed Nodos, where he calculated out how many more drug deals he had to do with Tuco in order to acquire this amount of money to leave for his family. But of course, he's unable to do so because he ends up getting kidnapped by Tuco before they could even do another drug deal. But that is that is a great call right there, and that is a very specific number to Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul for sure at Dylan 2 times. I definitely think I remember that. Again, it'll be hard for me to find the exact specific thing here with the scrolling, but I did remember 700,000 and change. So yes, that was definitely intentional for sure, it seems, at Dylan 2 times. At X8 Abood, the Suzuki Esteem movie. I like where your head is at there for sure. We had El Camino. Maybe we'll get a Suzuki Esteem. That would be great. I mean, I would not be opposed to that. That seems like a great name for a Better Call Saul movie for sure. At again, I'm sorry on the name there. At X8 Abood. I like where your head is at there for sure. Yeah, at Wesley Swigert, I've never. If you're referring to the television show Chernobyl, I've never seen it. But yeah, yeah, a lot of running between the raindrops again. As Peter Gould said, these last 3 episodes are going to go more or less in the Insider podcast. That's definitely what he alluded to. So definitely seems to be the case for sure. And again, really can't wait for next week. It's gonna be something there. So. At Richie MC, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Really appreciate the support. What are your thoughts if this episode was the finale and Vince Gilligan left it up to the audience, the fate of Jimmy, Saul, Gene? That would definitely be pretty Sopranos-esque, would it not? At Richie MC, again, I've never seen The Sopranos, but I do know the very infamous cutting to black ending in the diner. It would definitely be very Sopranos for sure. It would definitely, I don't know how fans would feel about that. I think it would definitely open up the possibility of, well, they're clearly going to set up a movie or something to that effect, right? So yeah, that's kind of where my head is at in respect to that at Richie MC. So yeah, interesting question there for sure. So yeah, again, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that was their intention. That's again, you're kind of it's a good question, interesting question. But yeah, I'm not too sure about that. I mean, again, it would be very Sopranos-esque where they sort of would just leave it open-ended. And I thought about that the same way. I mean, what if they just sort of left, again, they would never have done this, but again, I love doing these, again, counterfactuals can be fun from time to time. And I also sort of had the thought experiment about what if Ozymandias was just the last episode of a Breaking Bad? I mean, that would have been pretty damn dark with Jesse basically being in captivity and Walter White basically losing everything. So, yeah, I'm not too sure, but yeah, that's an interesting sort of a counterfactual premise there for sure at Richie MC. But yeah, that would have been interesting. I don't know. Maybe it would have been too similar to the at Faisal. There would have been riots, LOL. Yeah, I don't know how people would have felt about that. And at the same time, I mean, who knows? We could still get a very, very big cliffhanger in many respects. In the final episode, again, the cliff. I mean, I would consider Jesse Pinkman driving through those gates in his El Camino to be quite the cliffhanger. At the time, until they basically tied a very neat, ornate bow on it with the El Camino movie. But yeah, definitely possible that I mean, I've talked about it a little bit at Mendoza's Coyote. Thank you for the super chat. I'll absolutely get to that. But yeah, at Richie MC, I've thought about that a little bit, and like I've talked about, it's very hard to end television shows. They're usually very polarizing. Like even great shows like The Sopranos, the ending was very polarizing. And when I say it's hard to end a show, I mean it's pretty hard to appease everybody. Not everybody is going to like an ending to a television show. For sure, that's going to be that's very, very hard. And just by the nature, it's hard to sort of tie up every single little loose end as well. So I imagine we'll probably have some open-ended conclusions to a lot of storylines and a lot of characters that we'll maybe see. And again, despite how amazing this episode was, it's still a little bit disappointing that there's only one episode left and we still haven't seen Patrick Kuby. So I mean, that's going to be pretty damn disappointing if they do it to us. I really hope they don't do it to us at Richie MC, but we'll see. We'll see for sure. I mean, it's not looking good. The Patrick Kuby appearance is on life support here, but who knows? You know, maybe we can have a miracle here. Who knows? At Mendoza's Coyote, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Really appreciate the support. What would your top 3 episodes be from season 6 in order? That is a tough question there. Mine would be 1, Plan and Execution, 2, Point and Shoot, 3, Waterworks. That is tough there. Ooh, man. I mean, you asked, in order to make this question much more difficult than just asking what are my top 3 favorite episodes are. So, I mean, just off the top of my head, I would have to say that definitely Plan and Execution. That one's in there. And I would probably almost agree with you entirely. Again, the order I'll still do, but in respect to what my 3 favorite episodes were, definitely Plan and Execution is one of them. Honestly, the list may change after tomorrow, that's for sure. But not after tomorrow, after next week, that's for sure. But I think instead of Point and Shoot, I think I would maybe have to put Rock and Hard Place. I think I would. And again, it's so tough because there have been so many great episodes this season at Mendoza's Coyote. I loved Wine and Roses. I loved Carrot and Stick. I loved Point and Shoot was a great episode. I mean, I enjoyed Waterworks so much, and I mean, to tell you the truth, I mean, it's kind of a, again, I think the Vivid Kiwi ranked it in his lower tier in respect to season 6 of Better Call Saul, but I really enjoyed Hit and Run. The episode right after Rock and Hard Place, that was one of my favorite episodes as well. That seeing that the Mike and Kim interaction in the diner, in the El Camino diner, that was just unbelievable. I love the transition episode after that unbelievably amazing climax of a Nacho Vargas death. Again, it's each their own, you're entitled to your own opinion, but yeah, so my top 3, at this point in time, in no particular order, it would be Plan and Execution, Rock and Hard Place, and Waterworks. How would I rank them? Oh man, that is a tough question right there. I don't even know. That is tough right there. Oh man, that's tough. That is a loaded question right there at Mendoza's Coyote. Can I accept a total cop-out answer and say they all tied? They all crossed the finish line in the exact same time in the 100-meter dash, and they all get a gold medal, and no one gets awarded the bronze and the silver? Is that allowed for a cop-out answer, Mendoza's Coyote? Oh, it'd be so hard to rank those at Mendoza's Coyote. That would be so tough. I mean, right now, those are my top 3. I would agree with you, except, I mean, again, Point and Shoot, unbelievable well episode, unbelievably well done. I mean, Fun and Games was there too. My good, I'm forgetting Fun and Games, another just unbelievably great episode. But yeah, Point and Shoot, again, I really, really enjoyed it, but I'd have to knock it out of my top 3 if I was forced to answer this loaded question. And I mean, it's a fun question for sure. But again, I kind of saw it coming. I definitely saw the death of Lalo coming just based on the backstory of Breaking Bad. And that's what it would have to put Rock and Hard Place in there for me. But yeah, that's a tough one. So again, can I give a total cop-out answer, Mendoza's Coyote, and say they all tie for first place? But really appreciate the super chat, though. Thank you so much for the support. And honestly, I don't know if I can answer that question. That's a tough question right there, and I'd have to think about it a little bit. But yeah, thank you so much for the super chat again. And even giving those as my top three answers, I feel bad leaving out so many other great episodes, like I mentioned. So. Yeah, at Mendoza's Coyote, yeah. It wasn't my favorite episode. I wouldn't even rank it in my top 3, or I wouldn't even rank it above like episodes like Fun and Games or Point and Shoot. But again, just a very, very good episode in my opinion. Just a very sort of, again, I really enjoyed that episode for what it was. I really did. But yeah, I see what you're getting at there, so. Yeah, at Goldilocks 369. Yeah, I don't know if I knew that at that moment, but as soon as he confronted him, when he shot those 4 henchmen dead, I said, oh, it's over. I know it's over. I mean, unbelievable scene, like I talked about, just great scene for sure. And like I said, you wonder. I mean, I'm really going back to what Giancarlo Esposito said at Paley Fest, and when I saw Adam, the video that the channel Adam Was Here posted, and he definitely described the final season like as personal, powerful and profound, something to that effect. And I'm starting to really wonder if that is going to be the very final scene we see of Gus Fring there. I'm really starting to wonder that, that scene in the wine bar, like it was just a perfect summation of Gus Fring's character. And I really wonder if that is going to be the final scene we see of him. And like I said, it's seeming more and more likely with him not appearing since Fun and Games. He wasn't in Nippy, he wasn't in Breaking Bad, and he wasn't in Waterworks. So again, I mean, I know we're going to be running between the raindrops here, and again, do we have to know the step-by-step process which the Super Lab is built? Maybe we will see it. Maybe that's how we sort of introduce Gus Fring back into the storyline at Justin Cruz and Mike Ehrmantraut as well. But yeah, I'm really starting to wonder for sure in respect to whether or not that is going to be the very last scene of Gus Fring. Yeah, I'd relax and sleep. I think, just with everything he said, with the personal, powerful, and profound, I really think that is going to be the case. It really seems to me, and again, just very well done. A really great piece of writing, and very sort of unbelievable literary ending to the character of Gus Fring. Should that be the ending to his character? At Elliot Leon, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Really appreciate the support. 2 questions. Was Carol Burnett a successful addition to the cast, or would you have rather seen the original Jeff in season 6? And do you think color will come back into once Gene's in prison? Okay, I really appreciate the super chat there. A lot there for sure. Again, I think, like I said, this is a very contentious issue. It's a very polarizing issue, the recast of Jeff. And I've made the cardinal sin of having an opinion on a polarizing issue where by default a lot of people are going to be upset with my opinion. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm gonna be a straight shooter here, and I'm gonna say what I truly feel in respect to the recast. But yeah, I think you're sort of implying that if we had the original Jeff, we wouldn't have the Carol Burnett character. Has that been confirmed? Because again, I've talked about how Peter Gould somewhat maybe accidentally gave it away, how the ending may have been different if we had Don Harvey in the Insider podcast for episode 610 Nippy. So yeah, again, I'm not too sure about that. I think that's kind of what you're alluding to. I don't know if there's been a direct confirmation about about whether or not those are mutually exclusive or not, whether or not Carol Burnett and the original Jeff are mutually exclusive. But yeah, at the same time, of course, I would have rather have the original Jeff. And like I've said, I mean, as maybe as upset as I was, and maybe as unimaginative as I was when I first saw that recast in Nippy, as the season has progressed, I have absolutely bought into the recast with Pat Healy. I loved him in Breaking Bad and Waterworks much more compared to Nippy, but it is what it is. I've much more bought in. So again, like I said, I'm not sure if those things are mutually exclusive, so I can't really speak to that. But of course, I would have rather had the original Jeff. So did the creators. I mean, they even said so themselves. I mean, Peter Gould said that, they were very upset when they couldn't get Don Harvey. And of course, in a perfect world, I mean, recasts are not ideal in any stretch of the imagination. They absolutely diminish the physical continuity. And again, I don't want to harp on this too much. I know it's very polarizing, my opinion. But again, of course I would have had the original Jeff. I think the creators would have wanted original Jeff. It just, by definition, it would have been better. I mean, no offense to Pat Healy. Again, it's not an affront to him personally. He's a great actor, and I've really enjoyed him. And again, I don't knock him for taking the role at all. If someone offers you a job and you want to be on this show, of course you're going to take it. I mean, it's not his fault that they couldn't get Don Harvey. So again, no ill will to Pat Healy whatsoever. So yeah, that's, again, I don't want to harp on it too much. I've made my points very well known in respect to the recast. But in respect to the second part of that question about, do you think the color will come back once Gene is in prison? That is interesting. Again, we saw the sort of first color sort of, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong here, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the sort of reflection on his glasses here when the Saul Goodman commercial was playing was the first time that we saw color in the Gene Takovic timeline since the episode Uno when he's watching the commercials in his home, if I'm not mistaken. So again, we're kind of making the assumption that he goes to prison. I'm not too sure about that. It's definitely possible, but yeah, you wonder if sort of color is going to re-enter the Gene timeline. I'm not too sure. But at the same time, yeah, it's kind of an interesting point in respect to the fact that how, Saul loved being, Gene loved being Saul. And, in season 1 during the episode entitled Uno, when he was just, after a day's work, he just reminisced and was forlorn for the best time in his life of being Saul Goodman, putting those commercials out there. But it's very ironic how that commercial ended up being his undoing. And if I'm not mistaken, was the commercial that Marion was playing the same commercial that we saw in season 2 of Breaking Bad, the episode entitled Better Call Saul, about, "Hi, I'm Saul Goodman. Did you know that you have rights the Constitution says that you do?" Was that the same? Was that the same commercial that he was watching in Uno? I think he was watching an assortment of commercials. That might have been the same one. So kind of irony there for sure at Elliot Leon in respect to the commercials being his undoing. And yeah, I wondered if whether or not color is going to come back in the timeline for season 6 in the Gene Takovic timeline. But again, I don't know. Again, it's sort of the metaphor like I talked about a little bit earlier in the stream in respect to all of the color being stripped from all of these characters' lives as the sort of black and white metaphor of the timeline is displaying to us. So again, I'm not too sure in respect to whether or not color is going to come back at Elliot Leon if he goes to prison. That would be an interesting sort of trope there, a sort of visual display for sure. But again, not too sure whether or not that's going to be the case. At Trish D, great callback there for sure to season 3 of Breaking Bad when he was trying to get that Wayfair class action. I remember. I don't know if that storyline was ever brought up. It was kind of just the sort of background I wouldn't say throwaway dialogue, but just kind of just background dialogue of what Saul Goodman was working on outside of his dealings with Walt and Jesse. But yeah, we never sort of got a conclusion to that, if I'm not mistaken. We definitely saw him putting out that class action lawsuit, if I'm not mistaken, in a season 4 of a Breaking Bad, in the episode entitled 38 Snub, when Mike is in the bar right before he's punched in the face by a Walt, where we see the class action lawsuit on the television commercial at the bar at Trish D. But again, I don't know if we got a sort of conclusion to that. So we know he sort of undertook the class action lawsuit. Very nice callback to when he sort of did the class action in Sandpiper, for sure. But again, I don't know if he ever was able to materialize that, because as the Sandpiper Crossing plot, very much alluded to us, those class actions take a very long time, and you wonder if shit had already hit the fan by the time any sort of real gears had been turned in respect to that class action having legs. So yeah, Trish D, that's a great point as well in respect to the whole RICO nature of all of it. So yeah, I don't think he got that. I do not think he got that class action settlement whatsoever. But yeah, interesting kind of where the sort of the storyline all sort of meshes together at Trish D. That's for sure. At Just Dan, that is hilarious. I think that is definitely going to become a meme. For sure, that is going to become a meme. The yup, for sure. Again, like I said, I don't know. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but I kind of want to hammer this point home. No pun intended. But in respect to that, the sex scene of Kim Wexler, again, a lot of people saying it was superfluous or unnecessary or awkward or something to that effect. But again, I sort of disagree. I kind of like the way it was interjected, because it was very subtle, but it was just the fact that, again, I think it needed to be confirmed to us that this was not some sort of, 90s, damsel in distress, very two-dimensional character where, some sort of, fantasy where Kim is like saving herself for Saul or something to that effect. She's being a normal human being who engages in doing what adults do, if you will. So again, I kind of like that scene there where she is moving on with her life in the same way that Saul is when he is having sex with prostitutes in his office. And again, yes, the humor was definitely interjected in that scene for sure. It was absolutely hilarious. But again, the scene was pretty funny for sure. But again, I definitely don't think it was unnecessary. Or, I mean, maybe by definition it was kind of awkward, but, I definitely think it was well done when it was put in that episode. And it actually described a lot to us for sure. So yes, at Mike Cush, more or less, more at Mike 87 Cush, more or less. That's a little bit more of a blunt description of it, but yes, definitely sort of I kind of like that for sure. At Matt Duncan, great call there for sure. Yeah, it definitely reminded me of that for sure. In season 5 of Better Call Saul, in the episode entitled Wexler v. Goodman, the whole commercial scam there, when they're doing those fake sort of accusations about all of those things that happened when people went into the Mesa Verde banks, and they're overlaid with Don Wachtel saying, "Yup, yeah," that definitely reminded me of that for sure. At Matt Duncan. At Hayden Curry, yeah, definitely possible. Again, it's going to be a long episode for sure. I think over an hour without commercials. So, do we get a Chuck flashback? Definitely possible. A lot of running between the raindrops. Maybe a Kubi scene. Maybe. We'll see. So, yeah, I mean, I think it could be very well done for sure if Charles McGill is interjected in this storyline for sure. So, yeah, at the president. Yep. Yup. You are right. The re-up reference. Yeah, as I talked about, Wexler v. Goodman, season 5 of Better Call Saul. It definitely seems that way. So, yeah, just Dan. That is a meme. I think it's already become a meme. So. At Relax and Sleep, I mean, who doesn't want that Patrick Kubi scene? And like I said, he was allegedly supposed to appear in season 5 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Dedicado a Max, but of course, I made a video about it, how they had to recast him with Mr. X. But yeah, I mean, who would not want to see Patrick Kubi? I don't understand. We've seen Spooge, we've seen Emilio, these were sort of secondary characters in Saul Goodman's world. Patrick Kubi was the second member of Saul Goodman's A-Team, along with Huel Babineau. So yes, I would absolutely love to see him. And again, We'll see. Again, like I said, that hope is on life support with one episode left. But my goodness gracious, can we please see Patrick Kuby? I mean, maybe they're toying with us. Maybe they're saving it for the very last episode. They didn't give it to us in season 5 and sort of the middle and said, well, if we can't get it here, we're really going to extend it. We're going to put it at the very, very end. So, who knows for sure. So, ooh, but yeah, I mean, this was just, yeah, I mean, again, I think I'm running out of superlatives to give this episode. Lots to ruminate on in respect to what is to come for Jimmy McGill. Yeah, at Will K, it definitely seems to be his Suzuki esteem. Again, I've kind of speculated on that a little bit in respect to what is to come for this final episode. So, yeah, at King Earl, always time for Kuby. I agree for sure. I definitely agree there's always time for Kuby. So, at Faisal, yeah, I kind of made a sort of almost fan fiction video about that in respect to getting another spinoff with a Patrick Kuby spinoff or maybe even a mini series. So yeah, that would be something there. So yeah, at Zay Vetal, one more Walt scene. Yeah, I surmised in a couple past live streams that it's likely going to do with the Brock poisoning. Kim spinoff at Love This Nation, yup. Definitely possible. Vince Gilligan's even spoken on it a little bit. Again, at the same time, he said he's in no iteration to do another iteration of this universe immediately. So yeah, definitely. We'll see. Again, living in the moment now for sure. A lot to think about, and before we start thinking about a spinoff. So yeah, just Dan. Who knows? Again, yeah. When we saw Walt in the flashback in the episode entitled "Breaking Bad," flashback, flash forward, depending on your perspective. He had the mustache again. He didn't grow the goatee until after his lung cancer surgery in the episode entitled "ABQ." At the end of that episode, and then he sported the goatee until Granite State, and during the flash forward when he then grew out the full beard. So yeah, you wonder sort of in what iteration of the timeline he's going to appear in, and the sort of length of his goatee. That's an interesting sort of point you raise. Yeah, Will K. Again, I mean, you wonder too. The whole thing about how Kim's saying, "I think you should turn yourself in." I think she's definitely genuine when she's saying that, but at the same time, she also sort of, she atoned for her sins, and yeah, maybe she will sort of lure Saul into go again. Man, that's sort of a complicated, nuanced, emotional plot there for sure. I definitely have to sort of take some time to think about that, about what I think is going to happen. It's definitely possible, but I'm not too sure in respect to what is going to be the what's going to happen in this final episode. At Will K. Anton, do you think the phone call from Gene to Kim was after Kim's meeting with Cheryl? No, that was definitely before, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, right? I mean, I think it was pretty much implied that it was before, and that was sort of the catalyst by which she went back to Albuquerque and atoned for her sins. So, yes, at the same time, that's true. She said she didn't know whether or not Jimmy was alive. So that's an interesting point. Again, I don't know whether or not she's genuinely sincere about that, or she wasn't gonna say that. I talked to Jimmy on the phone. But yeah, that was a sort of interesting piece of dialogue. I see what you're getting at there, because the way I read it was definitely a catalyst for her going back to Albuquerque. But at the same time, you wonder why she said that, where she knew she was still alive. So yeah, I thought the phone call was before and was the catalyst. But yeah, that dialogue was kind of interesting. Why did she say that? Why didn't she just say I spoke to him, but I don't know where he is? Like, why didn't she say I don't know whether or not he's still alive? Or she could have said the last time I spoke to him, she's still alive. So yeah, kind of interesting piece of dialogue there for sure. I'm not too sure. And again, I really want to listen to the Insider podcast and sort of hear what the creators have to say. But like I said, they really don't touch on the story too much. They really like to talk about the sort of the entire process of making an episode, everything included, like filming, editing, all of that. So, but we'll see. So. At Mendoza's Coyote, thank you so much for the super chat. Do you think Jeff was Gene Takovic's big downfall? I mean, yes, indirectly in a way, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, for sure. I mean, even after that phone call, I mean, he didn't have to do the scam with the barbiturates. He could have absolutely been sincere when he said, we're done. You don't, when Gene Takovic, Saul Goodman, you don't know him. When you don't go to the Cottonwood Wall. When you see me walking across the street, when you see me walking like down the street, you cross the other side. So yeah, in many respects, you could sort of label all sorts of things as Gene Takovic's potential downfall. You could label him. You could label, the phone call with Kim. But yeah, I would say Jeff was a big component of it for sure. A lot of irrational decision making with Jeff the cab driver. So many chances to get away with it all scot-free, but he kept just sort of flying too close to the sun. Too much hubris for sure. Well, that's a different sort of Greek analogy. But yeah, it's all part of it for sure at Mendoza's Coyote. So at Taco Truck Engineer, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. She is glad he is alive so he can be punished for his misdeeds. Interesting sort of premise there for sure at Taco Truck Engineer. Never thought about that. My sort of interpretation was maybe a little bit maybe too sappy compared to that. But again, that's an interesting one about I'm glad you're still alive so you can atone for your sins. That is interesting. I like that premise, Taco Truck. Definitely possible. Maybe there's also the nuance there about I still sort of, you were still a part of my life, and I still, in a weird, twisted way, I still, care about you in a sort of nebulous way. Maybe that's a part of it too, but that is a great point there too at Taco Truck Engineer. It's definitely possible. Like I said, we do not know what is going through Kim Wexler's head. So yeah, just some food for thought there for sure. Yeah, that's another very sort of interesting angle that you're absolutely spot on there in your assessment. How, I'm glad you're still alive because you need to atone, just like we need to atone. Kind of, again, another sort of a sort of long, winded callback to season 1 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Uno, when he says to Howard, Hamlin, and Kim and the other sort of members of HHM in the conference room, and you will atone. So who knows? I mean, Kim is sort of trying to atone. Maybe she wants Gene, Saul, Jimmy to atone as well. So yeah, really great point there at Taco Truck Engineer. That is a great sort of premise there for sure. I think you're definitely onto something there. And while there may be sort of, like I said, the sort of twisted, complicated caring for Gene and not, wanting him to be dead by any stretch of the imagination, that being part of it, I think what you're saying is absolutely a part of it as well at Taco Truck Engineer. And thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate the support. That's a really great point that you raise. At Just Dan, too funny. I definitely think the OK Buddy chicanery subreddit will be all over that for sure. So. Yep, at Steve Bob JD, absolutely. That is a spot on there. We cannot know what the characters are thinking unless it's outwardly, definitively displayed to us. There's no way of knowing for sure. So yeah, for again, all sorts of definitely possible interpretations. I think Taco Truck Engineer was onto something for sure. So yeah, great point for sure. Yeah, at Will Pickering. Yep, Emilio again, very akin to Spooge's cameo, where we see the fact that he was a client, the dialogue that was presented to us. Actually, both of those clients, Spooge and Emilio, being a client of Saul, was both mentioned in the exact same episode, season 2 of Breaking Bad, episode entitled Better Call Saul. So yeah, again, we don't see exactly what the conversations were, but again, we didn't have to. So again, really sort of cool to see those cameos for sure. And really enjoyed it. And the writing was definitely on the wall. Again, I don't want to, I had all sorts of sort of things I was sort of speculating on. But again, I kind of discussed on my prior live stream how it definitely made a lot of sense that Jesse's cameo, the standalone cameo, would relate to Emilio and Saul somehow. That made a lot of sense to me. So. And again, kind of cool to establish the backstory, how Jesse was partners with Emilio. Again, he said he knew him from like 3rd grade. In the episode entitled, I think, Cats and the Cats in the Bag, if I'm not mistaken, when they're talking about the chemically disincorporating his body in that episode. That's a whole nother sort of subplot. But yeah, so again, I thought that would definitely make a lot of sense, that's how Jesse's standalone cameo would take place with Emilio Koyama. So yeah, very, very cool scene there for sure. And again, it's kind of crazy. Like, who knew? Like, the actors who portrayed Spooge and the actor who portrayed Emilio. I mean, Emilio was just in the pilot. He died in the pilot episode. And now he's in the penultimate episode of Better Call Saul all these years later. Just crazy to think about. Just unbelievably surreal, probably, for these actors to think about how they would, the sort of their work on these shows sort of come full circle. And of course, Spooge being in Peekaboo, as well as in the episode prior to that in season 2 of Breaking Bad, entitled Breakage, when him and his old lady rip off Skinny Pete. So yeah, just kind of crazy to have that come full circle. I would imagine that both of them just couldn't believe the fact that they would those characters would be reprised in Better Call Saul season 6. So very, very, very cool to see this show really start to come full circle. So. Yeah, Gringo Troller, that's an interesting point you raised. I thought about that a little bit in respect to him, the quote he said about being the John Dillinger of the Metropolitan Detention Center, like he said to Walter White, if you go in there with your head hung high, how much time do you have left? In the episode entitled Granite State, again, I don't know. Again, it's kind of a thing where I don't think Saul wants to go to prison. And like the episode entitled Breaking Bad kind of displayed to us, he's really not living any real life. He's just going through the motions, he's already kind of sitting around waiting to die, if you will. So again, I'm forgetting I apologize, but again, the one super chat, I don't know if I can go back and find, but yeah, I think it was again, I'm forgetting it. It was I apologize. It was the Leon, I believe it was the super chat. Elliot Leon, if I'm not mistaken. I apologize if I mispronounced that name. But yeah, kind of saying, does the color come back to life when Gene goes, if and when Gene goes to prison? That's an interesting thought. You wonder, you do wonder if sort of that's again, and you sort of wonder what the sort of metaphor is behind all of that. So, sort of very interesting food for thought. That is for sure. So. Yeah, Mr. Marty Mart about the vacuum cleaner repairman. Again, that's a whole another sort of storyline with how they'll maybe incorporate into this appear. You wonder. Again, I have no idea. I don't want to. It's so open ended, compounded by the fact that we don't have the actor Robert Forster to portray the character, and this is how in the world does the Suzuki Esteem sort of fit in here? Again, there's been a lot of misdirections in respect to the recap, the sort of the teasers for sure. So. Yeah, a lot of food for thought here, so. Yeah, another great question at Long John Teabag. Will they find Howard and Lalo again? Another sort of interesting component of the story. Again, there's only one episode left by nature of it. They are going to be open-ended aspects of the storyline, but again, we'll see. We will see. Next week we will see for sure. Yeah, I've thought about it just yet. Maybe Saul figures out that the Ed disappear, the character passes away, maybe. But I guess this is after El Camino, so it's definitely possible he's already helped Jesse at this point in time. I think again, I'm gonna have to go back and watch El Camino for sure this week and sort of see how it all ties into the story. So. Ooh, but yeah, on that note, again, it's kind of late. It's been a long day. Got a long day tomorrow. But yeah, really enjoyed breaking down this episode. This has to be one of my favorite episodes of this entire season. Really appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. Definitely planning on making some videos this week. Also planning on discussing El Camino and Jesse Pinkman, hopefully as well. So yeah, it's really appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate the super chats, all the supports. Thank you so much for everyone watching tonight. At Relax and Sleep, thank you again so much for the support, man. Really appreciate it. That includes everyone for sure. But yeah, we'll. I cannot wait to see what happens in this very next episode. Can't wait to see what storylines are addressed and which ones are left a little bit more open-ended. But yeah, a lot to think about in this very final week that we have prior to the release of a new episode of Better Call Saul, and this is the last week that it will ever be. So it was, it's quite an episode. I'm gonna savor every moment of it, And yeah, one more episode to go. So yeah, again, wow, at Hector A, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Really appreciate the support. Thank you so much. Yeah, at Justin Cruz, hopefully be posting videos all through this week for sure. Again, schedules, real life is definitely a lot going on, but I definitely, there's a lot to say for sure about this episode. So yeah, at Mike87 Kush, yeah, but pretty funny. But yeah, I'll be posting content all through the week. We'll be planning on talking about Jesse Pinkman. Definitely be going live as well to discuss the next episode at the end of the week. And it's pretty surreal to even say one episode left about of this entire universe, unless we get a spin-off or a movie or something like that. But all right, like I said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate the chat. Really loved discussing this episode. And have a great rest of your night, or a great tomorrow. It's already tomorrow on the East Coast. And I'll see you guys around. Take care, guys. Have a great night.